welcome to Gefet and Rabbanit Yael Shimoni, bringing to you together with Fadran and Yeshivat Drisha, learning Rishonim in your learning of Daf Yomi. And today I'm translating the Shir of Rabbanit Yael Shimoni. Highly recommend also to listen to her in Hebrew after you listen to me, or be glad to listen to her in Hebrew. But anyway, I'm here for you to translate. And today we're going to talk about the sugya of Pruzbol. And as Rabbanit Yael mentioned, this Perek Tikkun Olam, Perek Revi'i, in Masechta Gitin, only the first two Mishnayot talk about Gitin, and the rest talk about Arda Tikkunei Olam. And here is a very interesting concept which we need to look at, that Chachamim come and look at Din Torah and say, Din Torah is fine, but sometimes Din Torah can create a kilkul in Olam, and we, Chachamim, have the power and must do something to create the Torah as a metakenet Olam. Therefore, we might even change with our koach d'Rabbanan rules of the Torah. This is a very interesting statement because it says that the deep meaning of Torah in the world is tikkun olam. And of course, we have these questions: how can we do it? When can we do it? Because we're not here to change the Torah. We want to have the Torah inside the world. But still, this parak opens up this whole realm of tikkun olam and the koach of chachamim to look at the Torah and say, if the Torah is here to fix the world, and sometimes because of the way the Torah is built, things can go wrong, we are here to get back to the meaning of the Torah and keep the Torah on the path of Tikkun Olam with our koach of Dinei D'Rabbanan. And as we said, this is a very interesting statement in general, and each sugya brings us again with the understanding of how this works and what are the limitations and what is the way that this can be done. So today we're learning about Pruzbol, and we're just after Shnat Shemitah. Last year was a Shnat Shemitah. At the end of Shnat Shemitah, we had Shmitat Ksafim, and our sugya is talking about Shmitat Ksafim in Daf Lamed Vav, and here starts the Gemara with the Mishnah as follows: Ena almana nifrat menichsei yatomim ela b'shvu'a. נו מילה השביעה, כי רבן גמליאל הזקן שתהיה נודרת ליתומים כל מה שירצו וגובה את כתובתה. העדים חותמים על הגט מפני תיקון העולם. הלל התקין פרוזבול מפני תיקון העולם. So as we said before, the first two Mishnah talk about Gitin, and here the third Mishnah is already talking about Pruzbol, which is Bichlal Dinei Shemitah. And the Gemara in Daf Lamed Vav asks, how can Hillel be metaken Pruzbol? What is Pruzbol? According to the Torah, there's Shmitat Ksafim, and any person who gave me a loan, the loan is no longer existing when Shemitah comes. The Shemitah is shomed all the chovot, and the loan becomes a gift to me. And here, what did Hillel do? Hillel said that we're all going to write down a note, which is called Pruzbol, which is a way to keep the loan from Meshamet, and we're going against Din Torah. Din Torah wanted that, like the ground is released, so also the bank accounts are released, and all of the loans will cease to exist in Shnat Shemitah. How can Hillel come and go against the Torah? And this Din Torah Shemitah is very, very central. If you read Shemitah in the Torah, Shemitah, it's a very, very, very central thing in Judaism. Shemitah is the Shabbos. As the Shabbos is not only once a week, Shabbos is once every 7 years. And these are very deep things. How can Hillel come and just throw away Din Torah? And that's what the Gemara is asking here, shouting here. How can it be that Hillel goes against the Torah? And as we said, this question is, first, who are you? You're just a man. How can you go against the Torah will? But I think there's a deeper question here. Shemitah has a meaning, has a huge importance. How can Hillel go against this importance? So, very, very, very strong question of the Gemara. And we have here the first answer of Abai. אמר אביי בשביעית בזמן הזה ברבי הידתן, הרבי אומר, וזה דבר השמיטה שמות, בשתי שמיטות הכתוב מדבר, אחת שמיטת כספים, אחת שמיטת קרקע ואחת שמיטת כספים. בזמן שאתה משמט קרקע אתה משמט כספים, בזמן שאתה משמט קרקע אתה משמט כספים, ותקינו רבנן, ותשמט זכר לשביעית. ראה הלל שנמנעו המילה הלוות זה את זה, עמד והתקין פרוזבול. Says Abai, I'll tell you how can Hillel have the power to change this, because this is not Din D'Oraita nowadays. Why is it a Din D'Oraita? Because Rabbi taught us that the Shemitah of Ksafim is connected to the Shemitah of the land. Shemitah of the land is only when Am Yisrael is in Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael Belt. So today, there's a big question, are we already in Shemitah D'Oraita or not? But obviously, in the time of the Gemara, and for many years, it was very clear that there's no Shemitah D'Oraita, because we don't have Shmitat Karka. The Chiddush of Rebbe is that we connect the Shemitah of money to the Shemitah of the land. And if the Shemitah of the land is not the Oraita, therefore the Shemitah Ksafim is not the Oraita either. And what Rebbe is teaching us, that Chachamim actually reinvented Shemitah Ksafim in the Rabbanan. And now we can understand, how can Hillel go against this? How can Hillel go against this? Because Hillel knows that this is only a Did Rabbanan Shemitah today, Shemitah Ksafim. And Hillel sees that the Am is not doing a Din Torah. Hillel ראה שנמנעו העם מלהלוות זה את זה. According to the Torah, we want to give loans to other Jews, loans without bibit, because that's a mitzvah. כסף עם תלווה תמיד. And Hillel saw that because people were afraid that their loans will not be returned, they stopped loaning. So Hillel is looking at this and saying, okay, we have a din rabbanan of shmitat ksafim, and on the other hand, we have a din d'oraita of halva'ah. It is very clear that I will prefer to keep the din d'oraita of halva'ah, even if I'm hurting the din rabbanan of shmitat ksafim. If it would be shmita min Torah, I wouldn't touch it. We'd have to deal with it. But since it's the rabbanan, so it's the rabbanan mul d'oraita. And Rabbanit Yael Shimoni mentioned that if you look at the Tosafot and the Mishnah in Masechet Shvit that actually brings this law, this Makor Tana'i, you'll see there a slightly different statement, that what there is written, שראה הלל שנמנעו העם מלהלוות זה את זה דאורייתא, and there it sounds as if Hillel looks at what's happening and saying, I have Shemitah deoraita, and I have loans deoraita. Now, when God gave this, there was no contrast. But now, Yeridat Adorot, we see it's one din deoraita against the other, and I have to choose which din deoraita I'm mekayem, and I prefer the din deoraita of halva'ah to the din deoraita of Shemitah. So it's a whole different reading of the Mishnayot. But here in our Gemara, the way it's shown here, Abaye is quoting Rebbe, quoting him differently than what we see in our Mishnah. And here, again, we have a din d'Rabbanan in front of a din Torah. Who's more important, d'Oraita or d'Rabbanan? D'Oraita. And what Hillel is doing is that he's keeping the d'Oraita in front of a din d'Rabbanan. So the question was, how can Hillel go against the Torah? How can he be mevatel din Torah? Abaye's answer is not being mevatel din Torah. He's being mekayem din Torah. Why? Because he's mevatel din d'Rabbanan. Shmita b'zman hazeh shmitat ksafim d'Rabbanan, shmitat karka and shmitat ksafim. And that's why Hillel is actually going against the Rabbanan, but in order to keep the Doraita of halva'ah. We continue in the Gemara, and the Gemara asks, well, if that is true, that according to the Torah, there is no Shemitah, how can Chachamim create Shemitah? Let's understand this question. If according to Din Torah, when we're not on our land, there's no Shmitat Ksafim, because this whole idea of the ecosystem of halakha when it comes to Shemitah has to be connected to Am Yisrael in his land. How can we say that if I gave a loan, this loan is no longer existing? That's gezel. This is my money. My money should be returned to me according to the laws of the Torah, because Torah said it only when we're in our land. Shmitat Ksafim is working. So how can Chachamim come and take away my money, my loan? This is gezel. מי קמידה דמדאורייתא למשנת השביעית ותקינו רבנן ששמת? Abaye's answer here, אמר Abaye שב ואל תעשהו. Says Abaye, this is something that Chachamim can do. Chachamim can go against the Torah בשב ואל תעשה. So, what is the second question? If we understand that according to Torah law, there is no Shmitat Ksafim nowadays, because that's what Abaye taught us before, how can Chachamim create a din Torah that goes against the rules of money, of kinyan, of geter? Says Abaye, it's something that Chachamim can do because it's a shev ve'al ta'aseh. We're not taking your money from you, El. We're just not allowing you to take it back, and that's shev ve'al ta'aseh, and that is something that Chachamim can do against din Torah. I'm continuing in the Gemara. And here something interesting is happening, and this is where we're going to see the machloket rishonim. Rava comes into the sugya in the middle and says a different solution. Now, the thing that's unclear in the sugya is this sentence of Rava is a solution for what? Let's first read Rava's solution and then return to the question of how to read the sugya. So Rava Amar, And as we said, it's unclear if Rava is answering the first question or his second question. הפקר בית דין היה הפקר, ואמר רבי יצחק מניין שהפקר בית דין היה הפקר, שנאמר בכל אשר לא יבוא לשלושת ימים כעצת הזקנים, השרים והזקנים יחרם כל רכושו, והוא ייבדל מקהל הגולה. רבי אלעזר אמר, מהכה אלה הנחלות אשר נחלו אלעזר הכהן ויהושע בן נון וראשי האבות. וכי מה עניין ראשים אצל אבות? לומר לך, מה האבות מנחילים את בניהם כל מה שירשו, אף ראשים מנחילים את העם כל מה שירצו. Rava says, I'll give you a different answer to your questions. Again, we don't know which question, but Rava says there is a way that Chachamim can change things and do things if they go according to the law of Hefker Betin Hefker. Hefker Betin Hefker is a strength that Chachamim have that was given to them either from the pasuk v'chol asher lo yavo l'shloshet yamim, or from the pasuk ele hanachalot asher nachalu Elazar HaKohen veYoshua ben Nun. These are two different pasukim that give Chachamim the power to take money and Imafkir it. Hefker Betin Hefker. Now there's a lot to learn about the sugya Hefker Betin Hefker. Actually, we have a student in Yeshiva who wrote a short ma'amar on this, or maybe even a long ma'amar. It's a very, very interesting sugya. We won't get into this right now, but just remember there's something here to be ayin in. How does Hefker Betin Hefker work exactly? But anyway, Rava says there is a law of Hefker Betin Hefker. You don't need a baye. This gives us answers to our questions. And if we'll look at the Rishonim, we'll see that there's a Machloket Rishonim, Machloket Rashi Tosafot, and Machloket Rambam Ravid on how to read Rava. And why is this very important also? It's important pasking halakha, because if we have a baya against Rava, we have a law that we're pasking according to Rava unless we're in 6 sugiyot, Rashi Tevot Yael Kegam. This sugya is not part of the Rashi Tevot. We have to be pasking according to Rava. So we have to understand what Rava said and to which question is it relevant. So let's begin with Rashi, and Rashi says the following. לעולם בין הרבנן דפליגי עד רבי ואמרי שביעית להשמטת מילווה בזמן הזה דאורייתא, ותקין הלל דלא תשמט, בין לרבי דאמר לאו דאורייתא, ואמור רבנן תשמט לא תקשה דבר. ובדבר שבממון אין כאן הכירת דבר מן התורה, במקום סייג וגדר, דהפקר בית דין בממון היה הפקר. What does Rashi say here? According to Rashi, Rava's solution is an answer to the first question of the sugya. The first question of the sugya was, how can Hillel go against Torah? And what did Abaye say? Abaye said, Shmita, B'zman Zeh Rabbanan. Says Rashi, Rava goes back to that original question and says, I don't need this. I don't need this. Shvi'it la'ashmatat bilved b'zman hazeh de'oraita. And still, Chachamim can go against Din Deoraita when it comes to money because of Hefker Ben Din Hefker. And it's not that they do it stam. They do it b'mkom siag v'gader. Okay, they have to have a good reason. But when they have a good reason and we're talking about money, even against Din Torah, they can change the rules. So that's the Shita of Rashi. If we look at Tosafot, we'll see that he does not agree with Rashi in this. So let's see what Tosafot says. Tosafot דיבור מתחיל מעיקר. Says the following. השתא, לא באי רבנן לשינוי ההך קושי עד ההפקר בדין היה ההפקר, כדמשנה בתר הכי, משום דקשיא ליה דלא היה לו להלל לעקור שביעית שמדאורייתא. ואף על גב דדרשינא בספרי, ואשר יהיה לך את אחיך תשמט ידך, ולא של אחיך בידך, מכאן אמרו המלווה את חברו על המשכון, והמסגר שרותיו לבית דין אין משביתים, מכל מקום לא היה לו לעשות תקנה למתקן, שביטל בכך השמטת כספים שציוותה תורה. So first begins Tosafot and said that Rava asked this question, how can Hillel be oker din Torah deoraita? And that's the original question that Rava comes to answer. But first says Tosafot a very interesting comment. You should know, says Tosafot, that even though Shvi'it is deoraita shmitat tzafim, even when Shvi'it is deoraita, the Torah itself gives you a way to keep your loan alive. He says, go to the Sifri, and in the Sifri, which is a Midrash halakha, it says, אשר יהיה לך את אחיך תשמט ידך ולא של אחיך בידיך, מכאן אמרו המלווה את חברו על המשכון, והמשאיר שטרותיו לבית דין אין משמטים. If I don't want my loan to disappear on Shemitah, I can have one of two tricks, halakha tricks, that will work me deoraita. One, I can give a loan on a mashkon. It has to have some kind of chefetz, an object in my house, and that's something that holds my loan for you. And if a loan is on top of an object, then Shemitah cannot take away this loan. Why? Because it's written in the Torah, "Ve'asher yeh lecha et achicha teshamet yadecha, ve'lo shel achicha beyadecha." If you have the loan hold it in your hand, it cannot be taken away for Shemitah. How can I hold the loan in my hand if it is on an object? That's the sifri. And another way to keep the loan still intact, hamoser shtarotav lebeit din. If I take the note that we wrote for the loan and I give it to Beit Din, if Beit Din is holding this note, then Beit Din is holding it for me, and it will still exist through Beit Din. So this is something that's written in the Sifri. These are two Dinei Torah that keep Shemitah from taking away loans of people. So Tosafot says, okay, wait a minute. First, we understand that the question in the Sugya is not so strong because the Torah itself allows Shmitat Ksafim to be weaker than what we thought, because the Torah itself gives us a way to keep our loans alive. Still, says Tosafot, the Kushiyah of the Sugya is still strong because Torah gave us these ways, but they're hidden. If a person has a very serious problem with giving up his loan, he can go to a lawyer, a Jewish lawyer, a Dati lawyer, and he'll tell you, okay, do this and that. Hillel did something else. He said, all of Israel, you should know Shemitah is coming. Come write up this note, Pruzbol, and I'll keep your loans alive. That is something that the Torah did not intend to happen. The Torah thought that this would be just a case for somebody who's really, really stuck, not something that you tell everybody, not something that changes Shemitah totally. And here, Hillel goes and changes the world of Shemitah totally. So the first thing that Tosafot did here, he minimized the question because he showed us that Torah itself allows us to slip away from Shemitah Ksafim if we use or mashkon. No, dramatic thing that Hillel did is not so dramatic. He didn't create a new world. He took the existing world and broadened it. So first comment of the Tosafot. Continues the Tosafot and says, let's see the Perush of Rashi. בקונטרסט פירש דרב הקאי נמי לשינוי פירחה דהכה ודרשה דספרי עיקרה המלווה על המשכון דמוסר שטרותיו מטעם דהפקר בית דין הפקר אלא דקרא כסמיך לה. So first, says the Tosafot, you have to understand the depth of what Rashi said here. Why did Rashi think that Rava is answering the first question? Because the original law of the Torah that you can give your shtarot to Beit Din, it is based on Hefker Beit Din Hefker. So what Rava did here is that Rava said, if the Torah law is based on Hefker Beit Din Hefker, so what Rava is doing, what Hillel is doing, he's taking the Torah law and just broadening it. And this is how Rashi read the Sugya. But we'll see that Tosafot does not agree with this reading, and he gives a different answer. He says, השתא לא באי רבא לשינוי ההך קושיא דהפקר בדין היה הפקר כדי משנה בתר הכה, משום דקשיא ליה דלא היה לו להלל לעקור שביעית שהיא דאורייתא. So says Tosafot, you should know, Abaye did not answer the first question. No, that's what Rashi thinks. I think that Rava came to answer the second question. What does it mean? The first question is a non-issue. Of course, Hillel can go against the Torah law because the Torah itself allowed us to change its rules. So that's easy. The second question is the question that's bothering me. How can Chachamim create Shemitah mid'Rabbanan? That's a big problem. And that's where we need the answer of Rava. The answer of Rava is to answer the second question. How come we create Shemitah mid'Rabbanan in a place that Shemitah is not existing mid'Oraita? Let's look at the two different readings of Rashi and Tosafot and see how they read the Sugya differently, and therefore they place Rava in a different context. So how did Rashi read the Sugya? How can Hillel go against Torah law? Asks Rashi. Abaye said it's because Shemitah d'Rabbanan. Rava says, no, Shemitah d'Oraita, and still we have the power of Hefker Beit Din Hefker. Second question, only for Abaye. How can Chachamim create Shemitah d'Rabbanan? That's your idea of Abaye. The answer of Abaye is Sheh Be'al Taseh. So that's how Rashi reads the Sugya. And according to Rashi, Hefker Beit Din Hefker is a way to go against Torah law, and that's what Rava answers to the question, how can Hillel Bichlal go against Torah law? According to the Tosafot, the question is, how did Hillel go against Torah law? And the answer is, Shemitah b'zman hazeh mid'Rabbanan. That everybody agrees with that Shemitah b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. The second question, how can Chachamim create Shemitah mid'Rabbanan? There, it's machloket Abaye v'Rava. According to Abaye, shev ve'al taseh, and according to Rava, hefker betin hefker. So we see it's two different ways of reading the sugya with a very big difference between them. Let's just go over differences. First difference, according to Rashi, if I'm asking like Rava, Shemitah, even if it's D'oraita, we still have a way to go against it because hefker betin hefker works even in front of the D'oraita. That's according to Rashi. According to Tosafot, hefker betin hefker, the shita of Rava, can only solve din Rabbanan. It cannot solve din D'oraita. And therefore, Shvita will be D'oraita. Can we write Pruzbol? According to Rashi, yes, because we're pasking like Rava. And according to Tosafot, no, because the psak of Rava is only on top of the fact that Shemitah is the Rabbanan. And if Shemitah will be the D'oraita again, we won't be able to write up Pruzbol because it only worked in front of a din de Rabbanan. Let's see that this machloket Rashi Tosafot is also the machloket of Rambam and Ravid. I'm reading the Rambam. כשראה הלל הזקן, שנמנעו מלהלוות זה את זה, ועוברים על הכתוב בתורה, ישמר לך, פני הדבר וגומר, יתקנו פרוזבול, כדי שלא ישמט החול, עד שילוו זה את זה. ואין הפרוזבול מועיל, אלא בהשמטת כספים בזמן הזה, שהיא מדברי סופרים, אבל השמיטה של תורה אין הפרוזבול מועיל בה. says the Ravid, בשמיטה של תורה אין הפרוזבול מועיל בה, אמר אברהם, זה אינו מחובר, דאביי הוא דאמר אחי, אבל רב הפליג ואמר הפקר בדין הפקר, ולכך נוהג בכל זמן. So as you see here, this is ממש מחלוקת, Rashi and Tosafot, here Rambam and Ravid. According to the Rambam, he reads the sugya like Rashi, because he says, you should know, he reads the sugya like Tosafot, because Rambam says, listen, Yael, Pruzbol is only working on Shemitah D'Rabbanan, and he can't be pasking like Abaye, he has to be pasking like Rava. So how does Rambam read the sugya? He reads it as following. He says the first question, how can Hillel go according to the Torah law, was answered by Abaye. Rava was not cholek on him. Then there is another machloket. How does Shemitah Ksafim Bichlal take place midrabanan? That's the din of Rava, Hefker Badin Hefker, and Abaye, Shev ve'al taseh. And here the Rambam is passing like Rava. And therefore he thinks that Pruzbol will only work in Shemitah D'Rabbanan. The Ravid that doesn't understand the Rambam, it's because he thought that Rava was cholek on the original question. Because Rava thinks that Shemitah Shel Torah is always there, and Hefker Betin Hefker can actually go against the Shemitah of the Torah. And that's why the Ravid asks, I don't understand, Rambam, how can you be pasking Abaye? You should be pasking Rava. And of course this works even when Shemitah is midoraita, because the Ravid is writing the sugya like Rashi. So let's just sum up what we saw. We had in the Gemara two questions. One, how can Hillel go against the Torah law? And two, how can Chachamim go against Torah law and create Shmitat Ksafim? And then Rava gave a different answer. Hefker betin hefker. Is Rava's answer answering the first question or the second question? According to Rashi, Rava's answer is answering the first question. And because it's answering the first question, the machloket is as follows. Rava and Abaye are asking, how can Hillel go against Torah law? According to Rava, he thinks Chachamim can go against Torah law because of the power of Hefker Betin Hefker. According to Abaye, the power of Chachamim is much weaker. They cannot go against Torah law. They can only go against in the Rabbanan. And because Shemitah is the Rabbanan, then they can do Shev ve'al taseh. Chachamim don't have as much power as Rava thinks they have. And that's Machloket Abaye and Rava. According to Abaye, Chachamim don't have so much power. And according to Rava, because of Hefker Betin Hefker, Chachamim have the power even to go against Shemitah from the Torah. And that's how Rashi and Ravid read the sugya, and we should be pasking like Rava, and that's why we think that Pruzbol is moil also when Shemitah is midaraita. But according to Tosafot and Rambam, Rava is answering the second question. After we agreed that the Shemitah is midarabanan, how can Chachamim create a Shemitah of their own? Oh, they're using Hefker Betin Hefker according to Rava or Shevalta Seadif. But this is just a discussion on the second level. Of course, the whole idea of Pruzbol is only relevant if Shemitah is midarabanan, and therefore, when Shemitah will be midaraita, we cannot use Pruzbol anymore. So as we see, this sugya that is talking about Pruzbol is actually talking about the power of Chachamim to go against Torah law. And we saw here a very big machlokes rishonim. Do Chachamim have the power of Hefker Betin Hefker to go against the Torah law itself, which is how Rashi and Ravid understood, gave a lot of power for Chachamim. And Dafka Tosafot and Rambam said that Chachamim don't have such power. They can only go against Shemitah if it's the Rabbanan. But if Shemitah is the Oraita, the whole Pruzbol of Hillel will not be relevant, and we cannot do anything against the Shemitah when it comes. We're just going to have to be shomed our halvaot. So it's also machlokes about acharit amim. What will be halakha then? It's also machlokes about the power of chachamim. How strong are chachamim, and how strong is the din of hefker betin hefker? And of course, it's also a machlokes on how to read the sugya. So what we did today was iyun, a little delicate but very interesting, and we see how textual reading and philosophy and halakha are joined together. And this is how we can understand machlokot, a very important rishonim and Am Yisrael, which give different approaches on all of these three questions. So I hope you enjoyed our learning today, and I highly recommend you also to listen to the wonderful shir of Rabbanit Chana, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll meet again next week. Take care.